You have a family. They love you. Your parents worked themselves to the bone so you could have a chance they never did. Your sister texts you photos of her dog on Sunday evenings and it makes you laugh out loud. Your brother is a little lazy, sure, but he's family. But here you stand in front of all of them, throwing their case folder on the table. My name is Tara Weston. I'm a lawyer. I built my own firm in Knoxville from nothing. Grew up poor in Harlan County, Kentucky, with my mom, my dad, my brother Blake, and my sister Beth. I left at 18, never looked back. I thought they were all proud of me, but something changed and I had no idea why. Honestly, life was good. My firm was doing well. I had great friends. I owned my building. I thought I had the world figured out. But then at a family dinner 3 months before I found that folder, Blake casually asked me, "So the building on Market Square, bought outright or financed? How does a firm your size handle liability insurance? What's the actual structure of the business?" I answered everything. I was relaxed. I was with my family. Then Mom called and said, "Have you updated your will? Who are your beneficiaries?" Then Dad mentioned running into my accountant at a community event, a man I had never mentioned to my family by name. But how would he know who my accountant was? My family just stopped making sense. I was trying to brush it off, telling myself I was just being paranoid. Beth worked as a secretary at a small building company, so I picked her up after work and we went shopping, then grabbed a drink. She mentioned that Blake had been coming around to visit Mom and Dad a lot lately. I said, "Well, that's good. He never really did before." Jack, the man I loved and had been with for 2 years, proposed. We took a trip to Mexico with our closest friends to celebrate. I couldn't bring myself to tell my family. It had been a week since I got back from Mexico. I needed to see them, so I stopped at a small bakery on the way and picked up eclairs, Mom's favorite. We sat down for tea, and I don't know what happened. Something about sitting at that table with them just broke open something inside me. I started crying. I told them about Jack, about the proposal, about Mexico, told them something had felt off lately and I just needed to know if everything was okay. Mom put her hand on mine and said, "Everything is fine, honey. Everything is fine." Dad nodded. Beth smiled. They congratulated me and said we should all go out with Jack and celebrate. I told them Jack had a lake house and it would be nice to celebrate there together. I was at my parents' house. Mom was out. Dad was resting. I went into his office to grab a USB cable and I found this folder. It said on the cover, Tara Christine Weston, subject, female. I didn't even get it at first. My hand stopped working. I open it and on page 1, Mom, Dad, Blake, Beth, all 4 of them. They hired a PI, paid $4,200 to dig through my entire life looking for something wrong with me, and they found nothing. Of course they did, but on page 44, Blake's handwriting in the margin, so she's clean. Now what? I sat on the floor, the wall clock ticked, and 6 minutes passed before I could move. I took out my phone and photographed every single page. Mom came home. I didn't say anything to her, helped her with the groceries, then drove home and called Priya. Priya was my best friend from law school, forensic accountant, sharpest person I know. She told me to send her everything and not to say a word to anyone about the folder. Next morning, she calls me back. First thing she said, "What does your brother actually do for money?" I said something about property, some investment thing, and she said, "I need 2 weeks. Can you go 2 weeks without calling your family?" Thanksgiving was right in the middle of those 2 weeks. I skipped it for the first time in my life, told Mom I had a work conflict. That was on a Thursday. Friday, she called me and said, "Your brother has an LLC, Weston Land Holdings, just him. For 2 years, he'd been quietly buying up small parcels of land back in Harlan County, each one cheap enough to look like nothing, but together they formed a pattern. And right at the center of that pattern sat 3 parcels owned by my mom, Blake, Beth, and me. Land going back to my grandfather on Mom's side. There was a developer out of Charlotte putting together a land deal in that corridor, and without those parcels, the whole thing fell apart. With them, a logistics facility. That land was worth $1.3 million in that transaction, and Blake had already signed a facilitating agreement with that developer, positioning himself as the middleman, 14 months before he said a single word to any of us about what that land was worth. He had negotiated himself a $104,000 commission on selling our land. My grandfather had a farm on that land, about 20 hybrid cows and 6 horses, and I was 5 years old sitting on his lap while he wore his cowboy boots and his plaid shirt and smelled like cigars and fresh air, and I thought he was the most important man alive. He taught me to ride a horse on that land, milk a cow, fish that lake, hunt deer in the woods behind it. I always planned to go back there one day. We all arrived at the lake house on Saturday morning and decided to spend the weekend. Dad was at the grill making his signature steaks. Mom made her famous potato salad and brought it with her. Beth brought fruit. I brought wine. The weather was perfect, so we set the table outside on the terrace. Blake was telling stories and making everyone laugh. Dad looked at Jack like he was already his son, and Blake shook his hand and said, "Congrats, man." Then Mom raised her glass and said, "Tara, we are so proud of you, and we love Jack already." I looked at all of them. I gulped my champagne, went to my bag, took out the folder, and walked back to that table. I said, "I found this at the house. I know everything." Nobody moved. Mom said, "Tara." I opened page 44 and said, "Who wrote this?" Blake went quiet. Then he said, "Look, nobody was trying to hurt you. We were just trying to understand your situation." Dad put his hand over his mouth. Mom started crying. Beth said, "They were trying to sell the land." Blake kicked her under the table. She went quiet and looked down. Mom said, "We were just worried for you." I said, "Just stop. So you were trying to cut me out of the land deal. You were trying to sell our family land and cut me out. I can't believe this. Instead of just talking to me, you went behind my back and hired a PI to dig into my life. I thought we were family. I thought we trusted each other. What is this?" I called the developer. Blake's deal was void, and I told him, "Sign over your family share in every property you bought in Harlan County to me, or I will take you to court for fraud." He tried to blackmail me, so I blackmailed him. He signed. Then I bought out Mom and Beth, and I kept that beautiful land that I love so much. I told Blake, "You betrayed me and your family in a way I never thought was possible. You are forbidden by law from ever setting your foot on my land." I was still mad at Mom and Dad, that they are my parents.